The Prince of Darkness has sung his final verse. This morning, Ozzy Osbourne, the wild, wailing godfather of heavy metal, reality TV antihero, and rock's ultimate survivor, died at age 76, just weeks after his thunderous farewell performance at Villa Park. For a man who cheated death so many times it became part of his myth, the end still feels surreal. Diagnosed with Parkinson's, ravaged by surgery, once bitten, literally, and never broken. And now, after decades of chaos, music, and mayhem, the world is mourning a legend who burned too bright to ever truly go out quietly. Ozzy Osbourne, the face of chaos, metal, and cultural rebellion, has died at 76, just weeks after a thunderous farewell performance that brought thousands to their feet. The news, confirmed by his family this morning, marks the end of an era that defied definition. "It is with more sadness than mere words can convey," wrote his wife Sharon, alongside children Kelly, Jack, Amy, and Lewis, "that we have to report our beloved Ozzy Osbourne has passed away. He was with his family, surrounded by love." Fans across the globe are reeling, not just because they lost a rock icon, but because Ozzy always felt immortal. The man survived it all: drugs, disease, near-death accidents, and even rabies. He was metal's mad prophet, a walking contradiction of destruction and devotion, infamy and family. Tributes poured in within minutes of the announcement. Rock legends, producers, and fans who grew up headbanging to Iron Man or laughing through the Osbournes are sharing memories of the man who made darkness somehow feel like home. And yet, for all his larger-than-life antics, this ending feels deeply human. A father, a husband, a flawed legend who walked with Parkinson's, stood through pain, and gave the world everything he had left at one final concert. That final bow now plays in our minds with new meaning. And as the world starts to say goodbye, one truth remains: there will never be another Ozzy. Earlier this month, fans gathered at Villa Park in Birmingham, England, Ozzy's hometown, for what was quietly billed as his final bow. He took the stage not on his feet, but seated on a throne, surrounded by a wall of sound and a lifetime of legends. His voice cracked, his movements were slow, but when he sang, it was unmistakably Ozzy, raw, unfiltered, and still defiant. That night wasn't about perfection, it was about presence. And now it feels like a curtain call we all witnessed without knowing it. The image of Ozzy seated, king-like, fragile, but still thunderous, has gone viral in the hours since his death. Fans are calling it his most vulnerable performance, and maybe his bravest. For decades, he ruled the stage with chaos. But this time, he ruled with honesty. He didn't hide the toll that Parkinson's and years of injury had taken. Instead, he let fans see him as he was: older, broken in body, but never in spirit. In recent interviews, he spoke candidly about how each day brought a new pain, a new limitation. "You begin to think this is never going to end," he told The Guardian in May. Still, he showed up. Still, he performed. Still, he gave his people what they came for: one last chance to scream into the night with the Prince of Darkness. It was a goodbye set to power chords, and for many, it was the most human Ozzy had ever been. Long before the bat, the reality TV chaos, or the throne at Villa Park, there was just John Michael Osbourne, a shy, dyslexic kid from the gritty streets of Birmingham, England. Born into a working-class family in 1948, his life was anything but glamorous. His father worked nights at a tool factory, his mother took shifts at a car components plant. Money was tight, but John had something else: a voice, and a hunger to escape the gray sameness of factory life. Music wasn't just a hobby, it was his lifeline. In 1968, that hunger erupted into history when he teamed up with Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward to form Black Sabbath, a band that would not only invent heavy metal but redefine rebellion itself. Their sound was slow, heavy, and darker than anything the world had heard. Their lyrics spoke of war, madness, and fear, themes that mirrored the industrial decay of their hometown. And at the center of it all was Ozzy, his wail cutting through the smoke like a siren. Black Sabbath didn't chase radio play, they summoned something deeper. Their debut album dropped on Friday the 13th. Their hit Paranoid wasn't polished, it was primal. And tracks like War Pigs and Iron Man became anthems for the disillusioned, the outcast, and the angry. Ozzy wasn't just a frontman, he was a prophet of the underground. And Black Sabbath? They were church. Almost overnight, the factory worker's son became the face of something dangerous and new. The press called him the Prince of Darkness. Parents panicked, kids worshipped, and John Osbourne became Ozzy, not a persona, but a permanent transformation. In 1979, Ozzy Osbourne was out, fired from Black Sabbath for substance abuse and spiraling behavior. But instead of fading away, he did the unthinkable. He came back louder, weirder, and more iconic than ever. Teaming up with manager-turned-wife Sharon Osbourne, Ozzy launched a solo career that didn't just resurrect him, it rebranded him. The first shot fired? Blizzard of Oz, his 1980 solo debut featuring the now legendary anthem Crazy Train. It was unhinged, unforgettable, and impossible to ignore, just like Ozzy himself. This era gave birth to the Ozzy myth machine. In 1982, during a live show, he bit the head off what he thought was a fake bat. It wasn't. He was rushed for rabies shots. The media went feral. But Ozzy? He laughed, leaned in, and kept howling. He didn't just embrace the chaos, he turned it into performance art. By the time the 80s were in full swing, he had become something more than a rock star. He was a symbol of unfiltered rebellion, a madman in eyeliner with a voice that refused to die. But behind the madness was an artist who knew exactly what he was doing. Ozzy released album after album. Diary of a Madman, Bark at the Moon, No More Tears, each blending guttural riffs with unexpected vulnerability. He mourned friends, battled demons, and survived the decade that chewed up so many others. By the time the world tried to retire him, he was already redefining himself again. In 2024, decades after his supposed peak, Ozzy was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame again. The first time was in 2006 with Black Sabbath. The second was for his solo work. 2 Hall of Fame rings, 1 legacy. And through it all, he never stopped pushing, never stopped performing, and never, not for a second, stopped being Ozzy. In the early 2000s, just when the world thought it had seen every version of Ozzy Osbourne, he pulled off his strangest transformation yet, from heavy metal legend to reality TV dad. In 2002, the Osbournes premiered on MTV, and everything changed. Viewers tuned in expecting madness. What they got was something better. A stumbling, mumbling, foul-mouthed, but lovable patriarch trying to function in a house full of chaos. And they couldn't look away. The show exploded. Suddenly, Ozzy was no longer just the Prince of Darkness, he was the king of cable. Teenagers who'd never heard War Pigs were quoting his confused rants. Parents who once banned Black Sabbath were now laughing along with Sharon, Kelly, and Jack. With cameras rolling, every domestic disaster became iconic. Whether it was Ozzy battling the TV remote, chasing runaway dogs, or yelling, "Sharon!" from the depths of confusion. But beneath the comedy, the Osbournes exposed something raw. Ozzy's vulnerability, the tremors, the forgetfulness, the slurred speech. What some viewers laughed at, others recognized as the early signs of something deeper, Parkinson's. And yet, there he was, letting the world in, unfiltered, unmasked, still trying to be a father, a husband, a functioning human, in a body that had already been through hell. The show ran for 4 chaotic seasons and earned an Emmy. But more than that, it reintroduced Ozzy to an entirely new audience, not as a madman, but as a man. A flawed, funny, broken, brilliant survivor who never stopped being himself, no matter what cameras were rolling. For a man who danced with death for most of his life, it was age, not excess, that brought Ozzy Osbourne to his knees. In 2020, he publicly revealed what many had suspected for years. He had been living with Parkinson's disease since 2003. The slurred speech, the shaky hands, the slowed movements, all of it had been part of a private battle he fought behind the sunglasses and stage lights. But when he finally said it out loud, it wasn't for pity, it was for truth. "I'm not dying from Parkinson's," he told the LA Times. "I've cheated death so many times. If you read that I didn't wake up one morning, you'd just say, well, it finally caught up with him." But Parkinson's was only part of the pain. In 2018, a staph infection nearly killed him. A year later, a fall at home aggravated a decades-old spinal injury, leading to multiple surgeries. Each one took more from him: mobility, strength, energy. Still, he kept trying. "You wake up the next morning," he told The Guardian in May, "and find that something else has gone wrong. You begin to think this is never going to end." He tried to tour, he tried to record, he even tried to pretend it wasn't as bad as it was. But Ozzy was never good at pretending. And eventually, even he had to admit it. The road was coming to an end. In 2023, he canceled his remaining tour dates, citing his body's refusal to cooperate. For fans, it was heartbreaking. For Ozzy, it was humbling. But he faced it like he did everything else, openly, honestly, and on his own terms. In his final years, Ozzy wasn't the head-banging wild man anymore. He was slower, quieter, but no less powerful. And perhaps for the first time, the world got to see not just the icon, but the man who'd survived decades of damage and still had the courage to speak. When news of Ozzy Osbourne's death broke, the internet didn't just react, it lit up like a stadium encore. Rock legends, pop icons, metalheads, and everyday fans flooded timelines with grief, gratitude, and disbelief. Sharon Osbourne's tribute was simple but shattering. He was with his family and surrounded by love. It was the goodbye no one wanted, even if Ozzy himself had seen it coming. From Tony Iommi to Post Malone, tributes came in from across generations, each person echoing the same truth: there will never be another Ozzy. Not just because of the music, though his catalog spans over 50 years and helped invent an entire genre, but because of what he represented: chaos and vulnerability, anarchy and honesty. He was a walking contradiction who gave voice to people who never fit the mold, and he did it without apology. His legacy is carved not just into the walls of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, twice, but into pop culture, music history, and the very DNA of rebellion itself. He made it okay to be weird, to be loud, to be broken, and to still matter. From the doomy riffs of Black Sabbath to the stadium screams of Crazy Train, from biting bats to battling illness, Ozzy never gave less than everything. And maybe that's why this goodbye hurts so deeply, because it feels like the end of an era that was never supposed to end. But Ozzy Osbourne didn't fade, he burned, and legends like him don't really die, they echo. In every riff, in every growl, in every kid picking up a guitar and thinking, what if I don't follow the rules. Ozzy lives on. If Ozzy Osbourne ever meant something to you, a lyric, a laugh, a moment where the chaos made sense, we'd love to hear your story. Drop your favorite Ozzy memory in the comments. Let's fill this space with noise, the way he would have wanted. If this tribute moved you, consider liking this video so more people can celebrate his life. And if you believe legends like Ozzy deserve to be remembered with heart, hit subscribe. We tell the stories behind the icons, the loud, the lost, the unforgettable. Rest in power, Ozzy. The stage may be empty, but the echoes are forever.